This ain't been about critics, not about gimmicks, not about who the greatest is. It's always been about love and hate. Now let me say, I'm the biggest hater. I hate the way that you walk, the way that you talk. I hate the way that you dress. I hate the way that you sneak this. If I catch flight, it's gonna be direct. We hate the bitches you fuck, cause they confuse themselves with real women. Then notice I said we, it's not just me. I'm what the culture feeling. How many more fairy tale stories about your life till we had enough? How many more black features till you finally feel that you're black enough? I like Drake with the melodies. I don't like Drake when he act tough. You gon' make a nigga bring back Puff. Let me see if Chubbs really.
I really thought I was done with the PragerU saga, but recently I've done a lot more digging. Some may call it being unemployed and nosy. I call it journalism.
Oh my god!
And I know I'm gonna get comments saying, why don't you talk about Democrats or the government? And boy, do I have a catalog for you. I've said it a lot of times that I don't necessarily hate anyone who's more traditional or is a Republican. I believe in being able to argue effectively and to find solutions together. However, the entire online political well is poisoned. The more digging I do on the origins and funders of people and pages, the more I realize it all goes back to the same types of funders and goals. But to critique the culture, I need to first critique the platforms.
And Baca got a weird case. Why is he around? Certified lover boy, certified pedophile.
I'm not gonna lie, I never liked Andrew Tate even before all the trafficking stuff came out, and honestly, I always sniffed him out for being a plant for a controversy. But to hammer the point home even more, I actually sniffed out Andrew Tate's ex-social media manager and got him on this video for an interview.
We definitely had insiders on platforms. I won't say their names obviously for privacy reasons, but there were insiders on platforms. If you said something negative about Tate, if you said something that wasn't particularly flattering, then yeah, you'd get a warning. You'd be like, remove that piece of content, or your page would be restricted. Or if there were countering and opposing forces in terms of marketing, in terms of perception, then of course, yeah, we'd remove those pages.
Of course, you have to be vague for privacy. I don't expect you to get too in depth. But did these same people on the mod team also work for other people, or like favor certain ideologies over others?
Of course. Like, here's the thing: all of the top creators, they're all vying for those same insiders at Instagram, at Meta, on Twitter, on Telegram even. You know, they're all vying for the same people who can basically, you know, at the stroke of a button, ban an account or restrict an account. Do you know what I mean? So it definitely depended more so on the personal level, the relationships that you form with these people, and also their belief systems. Who were they a fan of? Right? What did they value? What kind of people did they follow?
Regardless of political side, if I was rich and powerful enough, I can get in contact with a social media mod and strike down anyone who's getting too close to the truth or simply for making me look bad. In an age of digital information, this is pure digital warfare. Being able to control the narrative and information by banning opponents from the algorithm or destroying their livelihoods. I have strong evidence to believe that rich conservatives and media companies have established a monopoly on the alt-right pipeline in order to slowly acclimate a more progressive generation into keeping the status quo. It's very funny how for the past 2 years, conservative talking heads have been screaming leave the kids alone when they can't resist trying to indoctrinate kids themselves. PragerU, which isn't even a real fucking university, started their own animation branch which targets children under the guise of education and is supported by Republicans such as Ron DeSantis. PragerU uses polished and visually engaging videos to spread simplified right-leaning perspectives on various historical happenings and social issues in order to get literal children on their side. With classics like Slavery is Better Than Death and Israel is the World's Most Moral Army, PragerU is definitely a certified kids classic that should be up there with Tim and Moby. Funnily enough, you will never see Elon Musk or libs of TikTok complain about this type of indoctrination. This is especially concerning considering politicians like Ron DeSantis have championed initiatives to promote patriotic education and combating left-wing indoctrination in schools. Very ironic, I know. It doesn't stop at elementary and middle schools either. Organizations like Turning Point USA serve as amplifiers for PragerU's messaging, creating a formidable network of conservative influence within educational institutions. Through campus activities, events, and online campaigns, these organizations draw kids in who may be biased because of their environment or just politically homeless, or even just too young to care about politics. This is not only predatory, but also shows the hypocrisy of the right's accusations. As the internet detective with a mask and a plan, I did some sleuthing and asked around to see if anybody in my circles have been preyed on by TPUSA or other similar organizations. And a friend of mine we'll call Amy gave me an interesting story and some email screenshots. I joined student government my freshman and sophomore year. I'm a junior now. And during my sophomore year, my friend sent me a link to a student government leadership retreat. Nothing on the website is expressly political or conservative, so I signed up and they sent me tickets to Nashville. I went with my friend, and on the first day or so, they played this really dramatic video about the importance of supporting college government leaders because all of our presidents were in student government. People started cheering when Bush or Reagan popped up, and then there was a black and white zoom in of Hillary Clinton's face with scary music. Then I searched up Campus Victory and I found an article about how it's linked to TPUSA. I think a chunk of students there didn't know about its conservative founding. Marsha Blackburn spoke one day and she started being super racist about Chinese spies and talked about gender brainwashing, and I walked out with like 8 other black students. The recruiters and adults in charge of recruiting student leaders were all being apologetic. I'm so sorry, she wasn't supposed to get super political. So they definitely weren't being truthful or at least upfront about their connections to TPUSA and other conservative orgs. Afterwards, I got recurring emails to go to nice events, boat parties, connections to conservative libertarian politicians for jobs and mentors. Honestly, the people I met on the trip were really sweet, the not conservative ones. And for those who won their elections, they got flown out to Washington or Arizona, some other place for another leadership retreat in the summer. You have these politically active kids that may be right or left leaning being enticed into these circles with politicians and powerful speakers that may end up radicalizing them or using them for their own ends, which actually brings us to the next segment of this video. The new Gen Z oriented batch of conservative social media stars have always intrigued me. Brett Cooper doing Gen Z style TikTok reactions for the Daily Wire, Amala Ekpanobi, and even my dear friend Vince Dow. I don't want to pick on him too much in this video, but Vince Dow is actually one of the people who led me down the rabbit hole to make this video. I originally made a meme about him when he called Martin Luther King an anti-American communist troublemaker.
I think there are far more great Americans deserving of a federal holiday than the adulterous, communist, anti-American troublemaker known as MLK. That's all I'm saying.
It wasn't until a year later where he reposted my viral Daily Wire video calling it stupid to his 200,000 followers. And of course, since he had Daily Wire in his bio, I went to see what videos he was on. And it's an interview with Michael Knowles calling him the based Asian. Real subtle, Vince. Anyways, I did some more digging and it appears that in high school he was big into, you guessed it, TPUSA. Based on his LinkedIn, he's been a brand ambassador for TPUSA and has bounced around different political organizations, the most interesting of which is the APU, the American Populist Union.
They got your ass on camera. How did they get you in 4K?
Funnily enough, the APU has been cited in various articles as being buddy-buddy with Nick Fuentes and his Groypers.
You have people like Nick Fuentes on the no-fly list.
Vice even wrote an article about the APU, and even more funnily enough, 6 months later, Vice would have Vince on a panel debating other Asians about race relations. Very interesting move having a known supremacist on your panel about race relations. Exactly 1 year after this debate, Wikipedia allegedly reports that his page may have allegedly been paid for to be created/edited. Brett Cooper also had a similar start. She got into acting as a child and also joined TPUSA and became an ambassador. It's really interesting how Turning Point USA churns out so many conservative superstars. What a coincidence. Which, by the way, TPUSA was co-founded by Charlie Kirk after gaining attention for writing an article for Breitbart. The same Breitbart Ben Shapiro also wrote for. Kirk and TPUSA were also funded by conservative investment manager Foster Friess. Despite their chirping about George Soros and woke elites, they sure do get tons of funding from the rich elites. These Gen Z speakers will also do this thing where they have their presenters all have some backstory of leaving the left. Amala Ekpanobi did a lecture where she stated that her first political memory was her white mom crying over Obama winning and being overly vigilant about the threats of racism she may face in her life.
Said, "Ma'am, I'm not here to hurt you. You were just driving a little too fast. Not even gonna give you a ticket. Just collect yourself and drive home." And he walked away. And I went, damn. Either A, somebody lied to me about how the situation was going to go down, or B, I just met the one good cop in America, and it could very well be B. And if I'm wrong about that, what else am I wrong about? And I went down this rabbit hole of finding conservative thinkers, classically liberal thinkers, Dave Rubin at the time, who was identifying as a liberal, and watching their videos.
This is very similar to Candace Owens' backstory of the NAACP and her family over-exaggerating the racial abuse and death threats she received from her schoolmates.
So this turned from like some kids prank called to like said some awful things to like front page of the newspaper throughout the entire state of Connecticut, a little bit in New York. NAACP outside of my school. It was like this situation that was talking about outrage culture, my first like introduction to outrage culture and the things that sort of formed my thoughts. Like this was a very formative experience in my life.
However, in Amala's case, fear of racism and injustice turned into an obsession with never being seen as a victim and switching over to the right. Now she's effectively fighting racism by saying that black people shouldn't be offended by a white woman calling black people broke N-words. Great moves, Amala. Anyways, Vince's Wikipedia page also says something similar. He was a progressive but then watched Tucker Carlson. They're not sending their brightest. From my perspective, it seems that TPUSA acts as a branch for the Daily Wire and PragerU to gather an audience of conservative youths, and then depending on their background and skills, use them to appeal to Gen Z. More sinisterly, I think that they have people that aren't boldly associated with their organizations so they can post outrage bait and bring attention. This guy popped up on my Instagram For You page with this shirt on. Because I'm Aussie, I immediately recognized it as outrage bait and figured he was from Big Conservative, and boom. He's not listed on PragerU's presenter page, but upon a search on their site, there's tons of videos from him. These are most likely human shields that draw in clout and traffic and be cut off at a whim if controversy ever arises. Ben Shapiro can no longer single-handedly carry the Daily Wire with SJW get owned, and the Daily Wire's audience mostly consists of boomers and conservative Gen Xers. Not to mention, with Candace Owens being fired, there's also a lot of infighting within that sphere. Older conservative billionaires are also becoming aware of growing anti-fossil fuel and environmentalist movements. To address these problems of progressivism, conservative media and conservatives with capital resort to recruiting young talent from organizations they fund to operate in high schools, while also grooming an even younger generation into conservatism with PragerU kids. This relationship also works in a symbiotic way with other outwardly neutral media platforms. While advertising these panels as everyday people finding a middle ground or certain demographics discussing issues pertaining to them, the debates rarely ever consist of a random sampling. If you pay attention to a lot of the panels and discussion topics, you start to realize that this is a common thread. These channels also do this with left-wing speakers and radical people overall, like including Destiny and Midwestern Marks among the panels, and even a self-proclaimed incel that compared women to children that need to be taken care of. My point in all this isn't to say that people shouldn't be allowed to debate if they're quote-unquote too good, but rather these videos lose the point of showing average people if they're going to invite huge figures already used to debating or people they know will purposely cause outrage. It's the same formula as Ben Shapiro owns college students, which has been known to go viral. If an argument is bad regardless of political leaning, it's a bad argument and should be effectively argued and debated. But having well-known presenters, especially backed by billionaires and media companies, debate with average everyday people in a panel is far from equal. Adding people like Just Pearly Things, Amala, and Vince Dow to discussions with average people only serves the purpose of getting outrage clips and getting more attention to their parent company and organizations. With Elon Musk rewarding people for engagement and likes and outrage, along with conservative media making a massive resurgence with figures like Tate. Like I said towards the beginning of the video, I can peacefully disagree and argue my viewpoints against somebody else, but when it comes to media that's specifically made to propagandize and indoctrinate and take advantage of people that already don't have their political ideology cemented, it's just super predatory and hypocritical of conservatives. Thank you for watching this video if you got to the end. Of course, with everything mentioned in the video, it's all allegedly in speculation of things that I have found online and supplied with at least a drop of proof. So if you're gonna do a defamation suit, please don't. Anyways, check out my other videos. Thank you for the support, and see you in the next vid.